They are not gotcha questions. These incidents were national news. And as director of the FBI, you have access to all of this information. So in 2022, Peyton Grendon walked into a supermarket in a black neighborhood in Buffalo, New York, and started shooting. He murdered 10 people that day. And on September 10th, your friend Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Tyler Robinson has been taken into custody and charged, but also on that day, Desmond Holley, a 16-year-old white male, shot and injured 2 students at a high school in Colorado before killing himself. And according to the Anti-Defamation League, he had a fascination with mass shootings and white supremacy. So do you admit to, deny these facts?
Those happened.
Okay.
Tensions rose sharply during a House hearing this week when Representative Sydney Kamlager Dove of California pressed FBI Director Kash Patel on one of the most difficult and politically charged questions facing law enforcement today: how the Bureau defines and confronts far-right violent extremism. If you want clear, fact-based explanations of what actually happens in these hearings and why it matters, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss coverage that puts accountability first.
Lady from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director, for coming here today. And actually, thank you for your response to my colleague from New York who asked you earlier about violent extremism. And you said that there is violent extreme ideology on both sides. And I think you actually alluded to that same statement yesterday in the Senate. So I too have some questions I'd like to ask you. These are not gotcha questions, and just deny, please, what you deem to be false. So Dylan Roof, who followed white supremacist propaganda, murdered 9 black parishioners in Charleston in 2015. Do you deny this?
I'm sorry. Dylan Ruth? Roof, can you give me some more information?
You're head of the FBI, you probably know this. If you don't know, that's fine.
You can give me a reminder, I've got a lot in front of me.
It was national news. Robert Bowers murdered 11 Jewish worshipers in Pittsburgh in 2018.
I do remember that.
And it was the deadliest anti-Semitic attack. So do you admit that that happened?
I'm not saying the other thing didn't happen, I'm just asking for a little information.
Patrick Cruces, who posted a manifesto about a Hispanic invasion, walked into a Walmart in El Paso, Texas in 2019 and began firing. He murdered 23 people that day, and the youngest was 15. Do you admit or deny that that happened?
I'll take your presentation as accurate.
All right, well, I have to say all of these cases have been adjudicated. As I said, they are not gotcha questions. These incidents were national news. And as director of the FBI, you have access to all of this information. So in 2022, Peyton Grendon walked into a supermarket in a black neighborhood in Buffalo, New York, and started shooting. He murdered 10 people that day. And on September 10th, your friend Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Tyler Robinson has been taken into custody and charged, but also on that day, Desmond Holley, a 16-year-old white male, shot and injured 2 students at a high school in Colorado before killing himself. And according to the Anti-Defamation League, he had a fascination with mass shootings and white supremacy. So do you admit to, deny these facts?
Those happened.
Okay. Your predecessor, former FBI Director Christopher Wray, said that one of the most dangerous concerns is that racially motivated violent extremism, especially white supremacists, has been the biggest chunk of our domestic terrorism cases and is responsible for the most lethal attacks over the last decade. Do you admit or deny, A, that he said this?
I'll let the record reflect that. Whatever he said was what he said.
All right, and do you agree?
That there is racially motivated crimes being committed in America, yes.
Yes, especially white supremacists, which is the biggest chunk of our domestic terrorism. I'm glad that you said this. So last week, President Trump was asked if there were extremists on both the left and the right. He was actually asked this by Fox and Friends, and his exact words were, "I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. The radicals on the left are the problem, and they're vicious, and they're horrible, and they're politically savvy." Do you agree with the president?
I don't speak for the president. The president speaks for himself.
Do you agree with the president
On what matter?
on the question that I just asked? Do you agree with his statement about the radical left?
That there's ideology that's driving violence on both sides? Yes, that's what he acknowledged.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
Okay.
But I'm glad that you're saying that and actually creating some separation between you and the president. And I'm glad that you
That's literally
are
not what happened. He said
acknowledging
both.
that there is violent extremism on both sides. What's interesting is that the research arm of the Department of Justice, the National Institute of Justice, do you know what that is?
I'm familiar with them.
Okay, great. It is the research arm of the Department of Justice, and it published an article in 2024 devoted to domestic radicalization, violent extremism, and terrorism. I have it. It's interesting that it's no longer on the website. It has been scrubbed, but I ask these questions because what makes a strong, qualified director of any business, of any household, of the FBI, what makes a reputable prosecutor is not lapdog loyalty, but a commitment to the creed that evidence is agnostic and that the evidence will lead you to making the right decisions. And your job, no one's job is to like the data or the evidence, it is to collect it. That is how you gain trust. And Mr. Chair, I would like to enter into the record, if I may. White supremacist group stands by racist ideology with unanimous consent.
Without objection.
Dylan Roof, the radicalization of the alt-right and ritualized racial violence.
Without objection.
Thank you. Another article, how Robert Bowers went from conservative to white nationalist. I'd like to enter that into the record with me.
Without objection.
Patrick Cruces believed he was fulfilling Trump's wishes in El Paso attack, his attorneys said. I'd like to enter into the record.
Without objection.
Buffalo shooting, how far-right killers are radicalized online. I'd like to enter that into the record.
Without objection.
Evergreen high school shooters online activity reveals fascination with mass shootings, white supremacy. I'd like to enter that into the record.
Without objection.
Murder and extremism in the United States in 2024, a report by the Anti-Defamation League. I'd like to enter that into
Without
the record.
objection.
And the article, the report that was scrubbed from the DOJ just recently, National Institute of Justice Journal focusing on domestic radicalization, violent extremism, and terrorism. I'd like to enter that into the record.
Without objection.
And lastly, the libertarian think tank Cato and their analysis on violent extremism and the right rising in extremist acts. I'd like to enter that into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Kamlager Dove opened by referencing Patel's own remarks from earlier testimony, where he acknowledged that violent extremist ideology exists across the political spectrum. She made clear that what followed were not gotcha questions, but a test of factual acknowledgement, something she argued is foundational to trust in law enforcement leadership. She began by citing the 2015 massacre at Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, where Dylan Roof, a white supremacist radicalized by extremist propaganda, murdered 9 black parishioners during a Bible study. When Patel appeared unfamiliar with the name, Kamlager Dove underscored the significance of the case, reminding him that it was national news and one of the most infamous hate-driven attacks in modern U.S. history. She then moved to the 2018 Tree of Life synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh, where Robert Bowers killed 11 Jewish worshippers in what remains the deadliest anti-Semitic attack in American history. Patel acknowledged remembering that case. The questioning continued with the 2019 El Paso Walmart shooting, where Patrick Cruces, driven by a manifesto warning of a so-called Hispanic invasion, murdered 23 people, including a 15-year-old. Patel accepted Kamlager Dove's description as accurate. If you are finding this breakdown helpful, take a moment to subscribe so you can continue to get context that helps separate political rhetoric from documented reality. Kamlager Dove then referenced the 2022 Buffalo supermarket shooting, where Peyton Gendron targeted a predominantly black neighborhood and killed 10 people in a racially motivated attack live-streamed online. She followed with more recent incidents involving youth radicalization, including a Colorado school shooting tied to online white supremacist content. Patel confirmed that these events occurred. At this point, the Congresswoman pivoted to institutional analysis. She cited statements by former FBI Director Christopher Wray, who repeatedly warned that racially motivated violent extremism, particularly white supremacist ideology, made up the largest share of domestic terrorism investigations and accounted for the deadliest attacks over the last decade. Patel did not dispute that Wray had made those statements. Crucially, Patel also acknowledged that racially motivated crimes are being committed in the United States, including those driven by white supremacist ideology. Kamlager Dove then turned to President Trump's recent remarks minimizing far-right extremism while placing greater blame on the radical left. She asked Patel whether he agreed with the president's framing. Patel declined to speak for the president and instead reiterated that violence is driven by extremist ideology on multiple sides. That distinction mattered. The Congresswoman noted that while Patel appeared to be separating his assessment from the president's rhetoric, the data tells a consistent story regardless of politics. If you value reporting that follows the evidence rather than party loyalty, subscribe now so you stay informed as these debates continue. Kamlager Dove cited research from the Department of Justice's National Institute of Justice, the department's research arm, which has documented patterns of domestic radicalization and violent extremism. She noted that some of this material had become harder to access online, raising concerns about transparency and political interference. The message was clear. These acts of violence are not isolated. They are documented, studied, and widely recognized by experts across government and academia. Ignoring or minimizing them undermines public trust and weakens the ability to prevent future attacks. As the hearing concluded, Kamlager Dove yielded back her time, leaving behind a record grounded not in opinion, but in adjudicated cases and empirical research. This exchange highlights a deeper issue facing the FBI and the country. Acknowledging the true scope of domestic extremism is not about politics. It is about prevention, accountability, and public safety. We will continue following how federal agencies define and prioritize threats, because how leaders talk about violence shapes how resources are deployed and how lives are protected. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next chapter in this critical conversation.